Welcome to Native Bidaské, Native News Online's weekly spotlight on the people making news and leading change in Indian country. This episode is brought to you by Indian Land Capital Company.
Welcome to another episode of Native Bidaské. I'm Levi Rickert, publisher of Native News Online, your host for today. And we have a very special guest, friend of ours, former president of the Navajo Nation, Jonathan Nez, who last year during the fall announced he's running for Congress for the second congressional seat in the state of Arizona. And he happens to be getting an award out in Seattle, so he has a Seattle background. Welcome, President Nez. How are you?
Hey, Levi. Good to be on the show. Thank you.
Hey, it's our pleasure, and I just want to congratulate you on your congressional race. I would like to spend a few minutes talking to you about it. What made you want to run?
Well, Levi, I think we all saw what was happening in Washington, D.C., more so with the Congress, with the House of Representatives about 2 months ago. In October, November, every time we turned on the television, we saw the dysfunction in Washington, D.C. with our government to a brink of a shutdown. And, the ouster of the speaker. And, we saw 8 representatives. I'm sorry to say that 2 of those representatives are from Arizona that are Republican. Those 8 really started some dysfunction, voting to oust the speaker, the current speaker at the time, McCarthy. And, we just saw that play out live on television. And, my father would always tell me, and he passed away, July 4th. And he would always tell me, if you have the ability to help, you help. You don't just sit on the sidelines and watch things go south. And, my wife and I, we were watching this, and we have the ability to help out. And, a lot of the folks in the district, encouraged us to run for Congress. And, I think that was, during that time, was the tipping point for us to say, yeah, we got to help. We got to bring common sense back to our district, not being far right or far left in the spectrum, but really talk about the issues that are affecting our constituents in Congressional District 2 for the state of Arizona.
So let me say this, and I think it is somewhat unique, you being a former leader of the Navajo Nation, you're running for Congress. It's unique to the extent that your leadership abilities, you'll be able to take with you, hopefully, to Congress. And so tell us, and I watched from afar, and of course, Native News Online covered a whole lot of the pandemic, and Navajo Nation was at the epicenter in Indian country. You helped navigate. You led the charge. I saw you in mask, out giving out masks, and on. Your abilities to really get the word out to the Navajo people. What are those leaderships? I mean, I think I already know the answer, but talk about your leadership abilities, of how you think that can be well served in Congress.
Well, Levi, I've had 18 years of public service. My wife and I have been giving back to our area. I was a county official, a county board of supervisor, and also being a tribal leader. I know the issues for the state and the counties, and being a tribal leader, I was able to advocate directly to the federal government. I testified many times before Congress, and also advocated for our constituency in the administrations of the former Trump administration, and also the Biden administration. And so we're bringing that experience, of course, our network, to the folks here in the larger district. I mentioned many times that And you know that Navajo is 27,000 square miles of land, the biggest tribal nation land-wise and enrolled citizenry-wise throughout the country. But this district is over 58,000 square miles. And, you know, once elected, we would hit the ground running. We know the issues, and we know the contacts in the administration and, of course, our congressional delegation. And so we will bring that experience to the forefront to fight for our constituency. You know, right now, we don't get anything really in infrastructure projects from Congress, from our congressional leader. They don't believe in earmarks, and but yet that money does go somewhere else if they're not being used in our district. And you know, of course, you know, I've advocated for funding for infrastructure to the Navajo Nation. That will only continue. And you know, here being recognized for an award, and I accept the award on behalf of the Navajo people. The Navajo people and our constituency really supported their leadership. And that was the reason why we were able to turn things around on the Navajo Nation. The constituency spoke. They encouraged each other to wear their mask, also to get their vaccinations done during time. So because of that, it was not difficult to, you know, turn things around from being number one in the country of COVID positive cases to being number one in the country, or maybe even in the world, of vaccinated people. And it was great to see our constituency come out and push back on COVID. And just imagine what we can all do by working together, not being on the far right or the far left of the spectrum, but really coming together as five-fingered people to address the issues for the 7 generations into the future.
Yeah, and one thing that really impressed me during the COVID era, and even your administration, your vice president, Myron Lizer, was a Republican, and he spoke at the Republican National Convention. You spoke at the Democratic Convention, albeit virtually during that COVID years. But I just felt like that was unique. Talk about that. To me, that demonstrates you have the ability to work. You will have the ability to work across the aisle with Republicans, given the fact that you had to work with your vice president. Talk about that.
Absolutely. You know, we in tribal communities, tribal elections, you know, they don't go by parties or Democrat, Republican, or independents. It's usually on the issues. And when I picked our vice president, a Republican, I truly believe that, you know, we needed to unify the nation at that time, and not from being one party or the other, but to address the major issues that are on the hearts of our citizens. And, you know, we were able to do great things. As you know, Vice President Lizer was able to go to Washington, D.C., had the doors open for with the Trump administration. And then when the elections turned, I was able to be at the White House under the Biden administration. And I think it really benefited a lot for our constituency. You know, historically, you see all this funding for infrastructure come to tribal communities. And, you know, I was honored to be shoulder to shoulder with a lot of the tribal leaders throughout the country, Republican or Democrat, but to address the issues at the time, which was COVID-19, pushing back on it and bringing those dollars into Indian country. And that was unprecedented.
Yeah, and as I say, I admire your ability to work with a bipartisanship, and I do agree. I mean, I do know that tribal election is not partisan per se, but he was very vocal about who he was, and you were vocal about who you were. So we knew what was going on. So that was a great thing. President Nez, I'm really concerned about democracy in America right now, and I know you and I have had some private conversations about it, and we share some of the same beliefs. But I'd love our viewers to know what you think the current state is, and how you, with your leadership abilities, can help turn the tide on this whole discussion about democracy in America.
Well, that's a great question, Levi. Let me just start by saying that every election, candidates would say that this is the most important election uh, of all time. But you know what, Levi? I truly believe this upcoming election is the most important election ever because, as you said, it, our democracy is at stake. You know, look at what happened with the ousting of the speaker, Speaker McCarthy. When the speaker and Republicans wanted to work with the Democrats to avert a shutdown, and they did, that was through bipartisan work. But there were 8 uh, Republican representatives that did not want nothing to do with bipartisanship. And like I said, one of those representatives we are running against, Eli Crane. What we need is bipartisanship work in Washington, D.C. That only strengthens our nation. It also protects our democracy. And we really need to encourage our tribal member, everyone, all 5-fingered beings throughout the country to register to vote. If they are not registered, get out the vote is very important. And in tribal communities, you know the power of Indian country. When we vote, we our voices are heard. And what we need to do is raise the bar 70, 80% turnout in this next upcoming election, or we're going to see democracy being diluted. And it's very scary for many of us. But at the same time, we are a strong nation. We have common sense constituents out there that want a better future. And of course, in Indian country, we always say 7 generations into the future. And that's what we're talking about here today in terms of protecting our democracy, Levi.
Yes. And to our veterans, you and I both know that Native Americans have at a higher percentage fought in the U.S. military dating way back to Revolutionary War than some of our counterparts. And, you know, that's one of the things they fought for all these years was democracy. So I appreciate your words. You mentioned the size of the congressional district geographically. Would you say 58,000 square miles? I understand it's like second or third largest congressional district in the United States. But within the confines of that congressional district are 14 tribes. What are you going to do, President Nez, to reach out to those tribes to get that native vote that you mentioned?
Well, during my time as a tribal leader, I had the honor of working with many of these leaders in Indian country, including the ones that are in Arizona. You know, matter of fact, San Carlos Apache Nation just fully endorsed us for our candidacy. And there are other tribes, not just in Arizona, but all across the country that are very interested in our election. So there's a lot of momentum in Indian country, and we appreciate the well wishes from those tribal leaders and even supporting our campaign financially. But what I want to say is that 22 tribes in Arizona, 14 of those are in the district. There's a lot of excitement. And I just, again, say to them that we need to register to vote, and also vote in the elections, because that is power. Power for yourself, power for your families, and power for your nation. And we are looking forward to representing all the constituency, all the 5-fingered beings in Congressional District 2 and the entire state of Arizona and in this country as well.
And then talk about voter suppression in Arizona. Do you feel it's going to be a factor with Native Americans, or in what can you do as a candidate to help overcome any voter suppression activities as you see it?
Well, I think one of the things that we need to let our folks know is they have tremendous amount of power in voting. And don't be discouraged, don't be frightened by other groups out there to vote. And of course, we need to make sure that our children, our grandchildren, our friends, our relatives are registered to vote. That's where the start is in empowering our communities for this upcoming election. But of course, you know, there are times when the legislature begins to push back on the people of color vote, the Native American vote. But we also need, especially in the state of Arizona, recognize that we need to elect candidates that are friendly to tribes. And there are a lot of districts right now in the state house and the state senate that are up for re-election, and they're very close. And what we need to do is put friends of folks to not mess around with voting or elections in those positions of power.
Yeah, and last time in Arizona, the election itself was called into question. There was a big recount, and it literally took days before they announced, who won the state. And tell me this: has the Secretary of State worked to help lessen the time that it takes to count the votes, or what do you know about what's going on with the election board, I guess, in Arizona?
Well, Levi, you know, with the anti-MAGA wave that went through the state of Arizona the last election, we were able to put Democrats in statewide positions, from the governor to the Secretary of State to the Attorney General. They're all Democrats. We turned the state from red to blue. And what we need to do is keep it that way in the next election. And so, you know, with the Secretary of State right now being the official for elections and the integrity of elections, I see that we are going to be able to have continued a fair election into the future and the protection of all our voters in the state of Arizona.
And I have one last question. What do you see as the biggest problem or situation to be addressed in the second congressional district at this current time?
Well, let me just say that infrastructure has been a big focus throughout my 18 years of public service. Infrastructure meaning water, electricity, broadband, telecommunication, getting new roads built, getting the aging roads rebuilt or refinished, and the bridges as well. I've traveled throughout the district from Prescott to Globe to San Carlos, and you can see that aging infrastructure. And we need a representative that will get our fair share of money to the district and not say, well, I don't believe in earmarks, or I don't believe in this type of financial, whatever you want to call it, misappropriation, mismanagement. But we also need to understand that we all pay income taxes, federal income taxes. We pay our share dollars to the federal government. And in return, we should be getting those resources to our district. But right now, we don't see that happening in Congressional District 2. When elected, I would be fighting hard to bring those dollars, our fair share of dollars, to Congressional District 2 so we can build more healthcare facilities, so we can build child care facilities, so we can expand elder care in our community. And let's not forget also to be better stewards of the earth. We got climate change. We need to bring dollars to help with our forests, to thin out our forests, to take better care of federal lands. And I appreciate the administration allowing tribes to be at the table to help administer federal lands throughout the country. And lastly, I'm going to use Secretary Deb Haaland's words. You know, Washington, D.C. has yet to hear a voice like ours, especially from Indian country. And with this historical candidacy, I'd be the first Native American elected out of Arizona. And New Mexico has done that. Alaska has done that, and other states have done that. But Arizona, they have yet to hear a voice like ours. And I would advocate for all of us in Congressional District 2 in Washington, D.C.
Well, from Native News Online, we will continue to cover your candidacy and your campaign. And congratulations for running. I love it when Native Americans get involved, and our voices need to be heard. And you're really right. We need to have stronger voices in Washington. And so I hope to have you back. And if there's any issues you need to address, get a hold of me. We'll get you back on Native Bidaské. But in the meantime, have safe travels. And any last words?
Yes, Levi. I just want to end with this. Those that are in Congressional District 2, go to our website, Jonathan Nez, FORAZ.com. And tribes and anyone throughout the United States, citizens of this country, you can help by donating to our campaign at that website, Jonathan Nez, FORAZ.com. Let's take back this district and let's take back this country. Thank you.
And thank you, Chi Miigwech, to you and to our viewers. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Native Bidaské. We'll be back next week with another important guest. So in the meantime, be safe, take care of your loved ones, hug your grandmas, and take care of those elders out there. Chi Miigwech. Have a good week.
If you appreciate what we do here at Native News Online, we invite you to donate to support our continued work covering Indian country. You can scan this code with your smartphone or go to the link located below this video to donate today. We greatly appreciate your support. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And be sure to scan this code or go to the link below to subscribe to our newsletter. Thank you for joining us today, and please be sure to join us again next week for another episode of Native Bidaské. Chi Miigwech.